I'm here again. So while I'm on the screen, I wanted to ask you a very personal questions. How many countries on the continent of Africa have you been to? Currently, some of my colleagues and friends and mentors have been having conversation about the free movement of Africans. And what this is supposed to do is that people should be able to move across these countries without visa. For example, for me as a Nigerian to move to Botswana, I would need a visa. And it can take up to 1 month plus for me to get a visa to Botswana. And this has hindered a lot of intra-African travel. But that's not even the real crux of the issue. What I've noticed is that in spite of these challenges that we have on the continent about traveling within the continent, we also don't have people who actually travel. When some people think about traveling, holiday, getaway, whatever you call it, I don't think that Africa comes to mind. I don't think that African comes to mind. And even when African comes to mind, maybe it's because, it can be budget friendly. So why don't we do here? Because this can accommodate our budget. Not necessarily because you had thought about, how would it look like for me to go to Namibia, for example? How would it look like for me to visit Zambia, for example? What is Victoria Falls looking like, whether it's from the Zambia side or from the Zimbabwe side? How many of us even truly know the names of the countries that are in Africa? How many of us even know the regions that they belong? So this is not a fight. This is first to say, as we are pushing for our government to ratify the protocol on free movement of people, we should also push by the side that Africans should travel Africa. That when you think of a destination for business, for vacation, for education, an African country should be one of those countries that you should think of. Me, for example, I studied film and TV directing in Ghana. And what I've noticed that has done for me in comparison with my peers who grew up in the same environment that I grew up in the same privileges that I had, is that I'm able to do projects and scale it from a continental perspective. And so sometimes they wonder how I'm able to get into the rooms that I've sat on or that my project has gone to. I give credit to my travel to Ghana and the kind of opportunities that opened up for me. So I think that as governments are doing their bit and citizens are pushing their government to ratify the protocol of free movement of people, which I think Rwanda, São Tomé, Togo, and one other country has ratified. I also want us to also think that Africa is safe, it's clean, the people are accommodating, the people want to have an experience with you. So let's first decide in our heart that in 2026, we want to travel Africa. Before we think about budget, before we think about who do we know in those countries, let's even have it in our minds that we want to travel Africa. Let that start there. Let it start from there. Let that even drive you to open your phone and check whether it's ChatGPT or Google or YouTube to go look at what are the names and the places in Africa that suit what I'm trying to do. Because the more we get people who are interested in traveling, the faster we can get the implementation of free movement of people so that we can indeed have a borderless Africa. Because what I've seen from the internet and some of the research that I have done, the people who are pushing for a free movement of people are usually people who are content creators, people who are travel vloggers, people who are photographers, people who are filmmakers. These are the people who are in the front line. And I think that it has to be participatory. And I say that to say that people who are engineers, for example, should travel. People who are lawyers, for example, should travel. We want not just creators or storytellers like us pushing for free movement of people. We also want the citizens of Africa. And I don't think that by this extension, only those who create content are the only citizens of Africa. So in 2026, it'll be interesting to see somebody who is a pilot. I know being a pilot means that you have to travel, but no, who is a pilot? Think of going to Burundi for vacation. I want to see a civil engineer, a doctor, professions that doesn't even need you to travel, a surgeon, a scientist, so that the conversation of free movement of people would not be one-sided. It will not be championed by only people who they will say, by the nature of the jobs that they do, they ought to travel. Because for us to build a continent that will be sustainable, that it will be borderless, that will have an identity, it has to be driven by everybody. So that it becomes a taboo. And what taboo means in my language is that it becomes a curse that you are above 30 and you've never left your country. I am not throwing shade at people who have never left who are above 30. I'm just saying that there has to be a culture of people traveling for any reason that you can imagine that is legal. Any reason that is legal, for education, for health reasons, for friendship reasons, for collaboration reasons, for any reason that you can think of. So that 2026, we won't see only people who are creators driving this agenda. We want the ordinary people of our countries to say that, yes, we want to move in a borderless Africa. We are interested in traveling the continent. And where that would actually start from is that you travel within your economic zone. What I mean by economic zone, I mean your regional community. We have ECOWAS, we have ECA, we have SADC. We have the one for our brothers in Northern Africa. So within a country, you have more than 10 countries that you can travel without a visa. So I want you to start from there. In your bucket list, if you're in West Africa, how do you go to Benin Republic? How do you go to Cote d'Ivoire? How do you go to Ghana? How do you go to Togo? How do you go to Cape Verde? How do you go to Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia? How do you go to these countries that you do not require a visa? So in the next video that I will make, I'll suggest some ways that I've been able to travel within these regions. First, ECOWAS, where I'm from, that it was easier for me to make friends, get hotel, get tour guide, get real friends who have become families. So that this conversation of let's travel Africa is not one-sided. We want the ordinary people of Africa to drive this conversation. I believe that Africa can be a borderless continent. You should believe too. Thank you. My name is David Aquara. I'm a global storyteller. I tell stories for a living. I'll see you in the next video.